On his way home from his office, the main protagonist drove and ran over a big dog. At that moment, he heard the sudden sound of a voice inside his head saying that the monster had been subjugated, gaining experience points. He's like, eh? Before anyone knew, the world had changed. Monsters appear. This is a game-like world where levels, skills, and status are in effect. This is an adventure where the modern world becomes fantasy, and where the main protagonist has to strive hard for his survival. Our protagonist sees the bizarre monster jumping off a tall building in pursuit of him, so he runs for his life. He keeps running until he's completely exhausted, and the monster catches up to him. At this point, he is sure that he's going to die. As for the context, it all started 3 days ago. Our protagonist, Kazuto, had worked at a black company for 3 years. It was rare for him to get off work early. Even though he says that, he was technically supposed to get off work 2 hours ago. However, this was still considered early, as it was normal for him to work past midnight every single day. He was lucky to be getting some time off tomorrow, so he planned to hurry home and read a few of the web novels he had bookmarked earlier. On the way, all the stress seemed to melt away just thinking about the upcoming free time. He yawned and bumped into something during that small moment of distraction. Kazuto stepped out of the car to check it out. The thing looked like a dog, but was strangely large for one, and it was still breathing. He apologized to the creature, but knew that saying sorry wouldn't undo what he had done. He stayed by the creature's side until it took its last breath. Feeling dejected, he suddenly heard a voice announcing that he had gained experience points, leveled up to 1, and acquired the quick growth skill. Startled, Kazuto looked around for the source of the voice, which sounded just like a game announcement. Even stranger, the dog's body had vanished, making him wonder if he had simply been hallucinating. He noticed something on the ground and picked up what was labeled a drop item. Laughing at how unrealistic it all seemed, he figured exhaustion was catching up to him and decided to go home and sleep it off. However, this was neither a dream nor a hallucination. Kazuto would soon learn that this was unmistakably reality. The next morning, Kazuto woke up feeling sleepy, despite it already being noon. He noted that it was noisy outside, but got distracted when the light didn't turn on. Assuming the breaker had tripped, he restarted it, but nothing changed. He began to wonder if the power outage was connected to the sirens blaring in the neighborhood. Unbothered, Kazuto started eating brunch. He wanted to turn on the TV, but quickly remembered the blackout. He had also forgotten to charge both his cell phone and his PC, so he decided to finally read the light novels he had stockpiled. Unfortunately, it was too dark to read, so he opened the curtains, and what he saw next was truly horrifying. In the chaos outside, Kazuto spotted an orc. He couldn't believe his eyes. There was no zipper on its back, and it was far too detailed and lifelike to be a costume. Looking closely, he saw blood on the cleaver in one hand and a severed head in the other. Horrified, Kazuto rushed to the sink and vomited. He tried to check the news, but the power was out and his phone was completely dead. Pinching his cheek to make sure he wasn't dreaming, he checked the window again, but the terrifying scene remained unchanged. The situation was far beyond his understanding. Monsters now ruled the streets, and everything had changed. Suddenly, Kazuto remembered the large dog and the mechanical announcement from yesterday. The words came to his mind instinctively, and he uttered them. A status window opened up before his eyes, just like in a game. Kazuto examined the screen but didn't understand abbreviations like SB or JB, nor how he had acquired the quick growth skill. He assumed it had something to do with the large dog from the day before. After scrolling further, he found he needed to choose a job from multiple options. He was surprised to find job options like NEET and shut-in. Trainee monk was likely added because he had lived like a corporate slave, and spy appeared probably because his boss had forced him to inform on co-workers. Kazuto considered all the choices, knowing how important it was to gather information and stay updated in a situation like this. He chose spy. It required 1 JP, which made him conclude that SP stood for skill points. Selecting the spy job granted him some spy-related skills, and he used the remaining points to level them up. Using SP, he acquired danger sense and hostility sense, crucial for a world filled with monsters. Pleased with the results, Kazuto tested his new physical skills. Now, the monsters didn't scare him as much thanks to 2 new resistance skills. He could finally remain calm in extreme situations. Kazuto summoned the item box, which felt exactly like using one in a game. He tested how much it could hold, and discovered that even at level 1, it could store a large amount. Everything in the house, in fact. It was incredibly convenient, and even listed all the contents so he wouldn't forget what he had stored. However, the box lacked heat insulation or time-stopping features. Perhaps those could be added through skill upgrades. Satisfied with his skills, Kazuto now had to decide whether to go outside or remain indoors. He ultimately decided to go outside. He needed food, and he had the strength to defend himself now. This was no longer the life he once knew. Gathering his courage, Kazuto stepped out. His danger and hostility sense were functioning, and his covert action skill helped him feel safer. Seeing no monsters nearby, he checked on his neighbors, but no one was around. It made sense. It had been over half a day since the world changed. Maybe they'd tried checking on him while he was still sleeping. Oddly enough, he had slept through all of it until noon. As Kazuto made his way downstairs, he noticed that his footsteps made no sound, thanks to his light step skill. On the second floor, he saw an open door and decided to investigate, calling out to see if anyone was inside. But an unpleasant feeling washed over him. A surge of hostility hit as a monster attacked. Kazuto quickly dodged, realizing it was a goblin. If not for his fear resistance, he might have wet himself right there. Seeing the goblin up close excited him. It looked straight out of a fantasy. Its expression was mocking him, which annoyed Kazuto. With no other choice, he turned and ran. The goblin, stunned for a second, became furious at the insult and gave chase. Kazuto opened his item box and summoned a washing machine, dropping it onto the goblin, crushing it. A clever strategy, to say the least. However, he still had to finish the goblin off manually to receive experience points and item drops. Doing so carried him to level 2, thanks to the hunt. But Kazuto wasn't excited. He still viewed the goblin as a living being. The goblin's body may have vanished, but the blood remained. After storing the washing machine away, he rechecked his status screen and used his SP and JB points to level up again. He prioritized skills based on the encounter. Kazuto then headed to the first floor. With his covert skill leveled up, his presence was even smaller. He quickly hid when he saw 4 goblins in the hallway, but one of them headed toward him. He had the option to escape, but decided this was his chance to adjust to the new world and raise his level. He eliminated the first goblin easily. As his stress resistance increased, he felt less guilty and anxious. When the other 3 goblins gave chase, Kazuto stayed calm. He summoned a wheeled refrigerator from his item box, and with his enhanced strength, pushed it at them with full force. It crushed the goblins, but again, he needed to finish them off manually. This time, his level jumped from 2 to 4, thanks to the quick growth skill. Suddenly, Kazuto felt a strange presence, though neither danger nor hostility sense detected anything. What he didn't notice was a large dog silently observing him from the shadows. Kazuto's danger and hostility senses are not detecting anything, so he guesses that whatever is hiding in the shadows isn't a monster. Suddenly, a hunch strikes him, and he calls out, "Momo!" To his surprise, the dog replies. Kazuto immediately rushes over and picks her up. Momo is a stray dog who had made this neighborhood her territory. She's a female Shiba Inu, and Kazuto used to feed her in secret due to his apartment's strict no-pets policy. His bond with Momo had always been a rare relief from his otherwise monotonous and exhausting life, so now he's overjoyed to find her alive. Thinking she might be hungry, he quickly takes out some dog food and a dish from his item box to feed her. Feeling much better, Kazuto asks if Momo would like some more food, but then, out of nowhere, he hears an announcement. Momo wants to join your party. Shocked, Kazuto wonders if this world has a party system like in a game. When he hears the voice again, he's certain it wasn't his imagination. He gladly accepts Momo into his party and checks her status, only to find that she's already at level 2. Astounded, Kazuto asks if she's actually defeated a monster. Momo responds with an enthusiastic woof, but Kazuto still finds it hard to believe that a small, adorable pupper like her could bring down a monster. To test something, he pulls out a small goblin soul stone from his item box and shows it to her. Momo seems interested and even tries to get it, but Kazuto hesitates, moving the stone around to tease her. Seeing her dejected reaction, he apologizes and gives her the stone. Momo sniffs it and immediately starts munching on it. Kazuto panics and tries to take it back, but Momo gulps it down and looks up as if asking for more. Wondering if the stones are even edible, Kazuto tries one himself, but as expected, it's just a rock. He gives Momo 3 more goblin soul stones since she clearly enjoys them. Then he remembers the purple shadow wolf soul stone. He summons the stone and Momo starts wagging her tail in anticipation. As soon as she eats it, she goes ping, circles around playfully, and returns to her normal self. Since there don't seem to be any side effects, Kazuto pets her while checking his own status screen. He discovers that each time he levels up, he gains 20 SP and 10 JP. He uses his JP to level up his spy class and spends SP to acquire new skills. Blade Master catches his eye since even a kitchen knife qualifies as a blade, and Conceal is one of the skills he wanted from the start. He even upgrades his item box skill, allowing him to bring out multiple items at once and store more essentials. Now he can summon items from up to 5 meters away. There's still room for improvement, but leveling it further should take care of that. Kazuto finds his car all busted up, thanks to the monsters. He curses their existence, especially since he hasn't even paid off the loan yet. He stores it in his item box, but the system registers it as junk, making him want to cry. He tells Momo he's heading to the convenience store and asks if she'd like to come along. Her enthusiastic response warms his heart. Kazuto knows it might be safer to go alone, but something tells him it's better to bring her along. Just a few minutes later, he'll find out that this was the best decision he could have made. As Kazuto roams through the city, he sees corpses scattered everywhere. It's a gross sight. Suddenly, his enemy sense activates, prompting him to stop Momo. A zombie is nearby, but Kazuto can't just drop a washing machine on it. Doing so would cause too much noise and attract more monsters. Instead, he summons a dumbbell from his item box and sneaks up behind the zombie. Confident that his stealth and sneak skills will keep him undetected, Kazuto moves in for the hunt. But before he can strike, the zombie abruptly turns around. Everything happens so fast that Kazuto freezes, certain that he's about to be bitten. At that exact moment, something strangles the zombie's throat. Using his Observe skill, Kazuto realizes it's his own shadow wrapping around the enemy, but he's sure he doesn't possess any ability like that. The only other sentient being nearby is Momo. She darts forward and tightens the shadow's grip on the zombie. Seizing the moment, Kazuto finishes it off, receiving experience points and a zombie soul stone. He hands the stone to Momo and asks if she saved him just now. He realizes that the shadow control came from the shadow wolf soul stone she ate. Kazuto pets the good girl and wonders if Momo is the only one capable of absorbing soul stones for abilities. Curious, he asks her to use the skill again and observes its effect. The shadow seems to only move along solid surfaces and grows stronger the closer it is to her. This skill complements Kazuto's stealthy combat style perfectly. He can close in quietly using stealth, and Momo can immobilize monsters with shadow control, allowing Kazuto to finish them off using home appliances. To him, they're the perfect dream team. Thanks to Momo's shadow skill, they're able to eliminate goblins without taking any risks. However, Kazuto's level doesn't go up this time. When they reach the convenience store, he's surprised to find far more supplies than expected. Momo picks out her food, which Kazuto stores along with other items in the item box. The amount of food is enough to last one person half a year. Kazuto decides they need to find a safe place before sundown. While scouting, he notices an SOS flag waving from a building. That could mean survivors, but he hasn't seen another human being since the world changed. And something about the shopping mall doesn't feel right. Still, he asks Momo if she'll come along. Her cheerful response seals it. They head for the mall. They defeat monsters along the way, and Kazuto levels up to 5. He immediately invests the points into upgrading his skills. He also finds a vending machine and stores it in the item box, thinking it'll be a good weapon. As they near the mall entrance, Kazuto spots people already fighting monsters. Using Conceal, he hides both himself and Momo, holding her close to extend the effect. From the shadows, he observes a group of men fighting off orcs. Judging by the SOS sign, it seems they're holding the fort, waiting for help. But the orcs are massive, around 2 meters tall, giving the humans a serious disadvantage. What truly unsettles Kazuto is the orc in the back. It has a different skin tone, a menacing aura, and Kazuto's danger sense is blaring. That one is clearly a high-ranking orc. Kazuto weighs the situation. He could step in and possibly intercept the orcs with his and Momo's combined skills. Victory could mean experience points, gratitude from the survivors, and valuable information. But what comes after? Those people would lean on him for protection. They might pry into his item box, ask him to share his supplies, using moral arguments about how everyone is suffering. In short, he'd become a glorified pack mule and bodyguard. As a former corporate slave, Kazuto can already feel the burden creeping back in. All that effort for complete strangers. Don't get him wrong, even Kazuto didn't know he could be this cold. But in a world like this, survival is every man's game. He convinces himself that walking away isn't wrong, even if the men fighting are risking their lives so others can escape. He decides to leave, but checks with Momo first. She leaves the choice to him. Kazuto instructs her to move out as soon as conceal wears off. But just as they're about to retreat, Kazuto freezes. His senses scream that something terrible is coming. He tells Momo to shield them with her shadow control. A moment later, the high-ranking orc lets out a deafening roar that causes the entire shopping mall to collapse. Kazuto staggers, barely holding himself together. He quickly checks on the dizzy Momo. That roar, it wasn't just loud, it was a skill, a shout capable of large-scale destruction. All the men who had been fighting the orcs are now dead. The high-ranking orc points toward the mall, commanding a swarm of orcs to march in. Then, the big orc begins walking toward the ruins, but suddenly stops. Something causes its eyes to narrow and glare. Even though the big orc is meters away from Kazuto, and he has his stealth skill activated, their eyes still meet. What's worse, the big orc sneers at him. Kazuto is so shocked and frightened that several of his skills hit their proficiency thresholds. Fear resistance, stress resistance, enemy sense, and danger. Sense all level up, and he even acquires 2 new skills, retreat and defensive instinct. A raindrop hitting his face brings him back to his senses, just as the big orc snorts and turns away. Kazuto wastes no time. He takes the opportunity to run for his life. However, he soon realizes the big orc isn't chasing him. Still, he's so shaken that he doesn't stop running. His mind screams for him to get somewhere, anywhere, that the big orc's eyes can't reach. He realizes bitterly that the way he is now, weak and unprepared, he's doomed to die sooner or later. But one thing he knows for sure, he doesn't want to die. To survive, he needs to get stronger, much stronger than he is now. Kazuto eventually ends up back at his apartment and collapses on the floor, gasping for breath. Both he and Momo drink water to calm themselves. In his entire life, Kazuto has never felt so close to death. He realizes now that he got carried away by his newly gained skills and successful hunts, which made him let his guard down. That carelessness nearly got him finished. Frustrated, Kazuto pulls at his hair, an act that causes his stress resistance to level up again. He flops on the ground, completely exhausted, while Momo looks equally tired. Kazuto empties his item box and constructs a makeshift barricade in case of a nighttime attack. The two of them sleep in the center of their improvised fortress, bringing the first day of the changed world to an end. The next morning, Kazuto wakes up as Momo licks his face. He greets her groggily and looks around, relieved to find that no monsters attacked them during the night. During breakfast, he tells Momo that they'll need to start actively hunting monsters. Momo tilts her head, not quite understanding, so he explains that they need to level up in order to survive. Of course, he reassures her, they won't take on anything too dangerous right now. Safety is still the priority. He consults with her seriously, asking if she'll combine her strength with his so they can survive together. Momo responds with an eager woof, and Kazuto smiles, thanking her. He opens his status screen and sees that several of his skills have leveled up. Interestingly, he also has a brand new skill. He realizes that new skills are unlocked when certain conditions are met. Using his available SP, Kazuto acquires poison resistance and auto HP recovery. Suddenly, he notices Momo stomping her feet and staring into a corner. Curious, he asks what's wrong. It turns out she has also gained a new skill and wants to show him. Momo tries her best to explain, but Kazuto can't quite understand her signals, making her whine in frustration. Later, Kazuto leaves his apartment in search of the big orc. He's more determined than ever to raise his level, and fast. He heads in the opposite direction of the shopping mall, prioritizing safety over confrontation. As they move through the streets, he notes the sheer number of corpses and wonders what the government or the military is doing these days. Momo suddenly barks, alerting him to a nearby goblin. Kazuto swiftly hunts it down, though his level doesn't increase this time. They continue onward, and Kazuto realizes many people are still hiding in their homes. If help had arrived quickly, maybe they could have survived by staying inside, but monsters are now actively hunting humans in this town. He reflects briefly on how this is no different from the shut-in job class, but dismisses the thought, uninterested in info-based classes. After defeating another goblin, Kazuto finally reaches level 6. He uses his SP to push his spy job level to 10. This unlocks high rank and secondary job classes. Excited by the possibilities, he finds an empty house to rest and check his stats. He debates between becoming an operative, thief, or assassin. He wishes he had an appraisal skill, common in fantasy stories, for more information. After some serious thought, he selects assassin as his high-rank job and hunter as his secondary. The decision instantly adds new skills to his arsenal. His AG up and Dex up significantly boost his stats. Inspect block lets him resist status inspection from enemies of equal level, while silent steps mutes even the sound of rustling clothes. Farsight improves long-range visibility, and track enemy reveals the presence of creatures within a 10-meter radius. His growth is enormous compared to when he first began. Over lunch, he discusses strategy with Momo, planning their new fighting style based on their upgraded abilities. As they move forward again, Kazuto's track enemy, danger sense, and enemy sense all activate near a mini-mart. Using Farsight, he spots 4 goblins and 1 hobgoblin inside. Thankfully, the danger reading is low, nothing like what he felt with the big orc, so he decides to press on. Kazuto approaches the mart cautiously and identifies goblin positions. 1 near the register, 2 in the meat section, and 4 in the produce section, along with the hobgoblin. That makes 8 enemies total, the largest group Kazuto has ever faced at once. Still, he's determined to take this challenge head-on. He admits it would be easier with another human partner, since both he and Momo function as short to mid-range fighters. Kazuto outlines the plan. He'll throw stones to draw attention while Momo hides in his shadow. Momo has a new skill that allows her to hide in other people's shadows. They discovered this ability during their lunch break. Amazingly, even when inside his shadow, they can still communicate. However, she can only enter through his shadow. Once hidden, she can control other shadows, and if Kazuto's shadow connects to another, she can emerge from that endpoint too. Using silent steps, Kazuto reaches the mart's entrance but gets an eerie feeling that he's being watched. Neither danger sense nor enemy sense triggers, so he brushes it off as paranoia. He proceeds with the plan, throwing stones to cause a distraction. The goblins inside take the bait, allowing Kazuto to sneak in. He heads to the meat section first. Momo uses shadow control to strangle 2 goblins, and Kazuto finishes them with his blade. He gains experience points and soul stones. Then, he sneaks toward the produce section, where 4 goblins are lounging around, unaware of their comrade's demise. When one separates from the group, Kazuto swiftly eliminates it. Now only 4 goblins and 1 hobgoblin remain. Suddenly, a goblin appears at the entrance and screeches wildly. The ones inside become hostile and begin bickering in their strange language. The hobgoblin watches calmly, then stomps over and roars. Kazuto flinches, afraid it might be using a shout skill, but it turns out to be just an ordinary yell. Thankfully, the goblins outside flee. Kazuto uses this opportunity to activate his item box and store several display shelves. This unexpected move startles the goblins, though only the shelves vanish, leaving the items behind. Regardless, the goblins are stupefied, allowing Kazuto to use the shelves as barriers to separate the hobgoblin from the rest. He assigns Momo to deal with the goblin near the door while he dispatches the remaining 3. The hobgoblin shrieks and smashes through the obstacles to reach him, but Kazuto has no intention of fighting it head-on. Instead, he tosses a water balloon filled with Tabasco sauce, something he had prepared earlier during a strategy meeting with Momo. The liquid splashes into the hobgoblin's eyes, making it scream in agony. Not stopping there, Kazuto brings out his ultimate weapon, a vending machine, which he drops on top of the hobgoblin. One hit isn't enough, so he repeats the process until the beast is flattened. Momo returns with the goblin she handled, and Kazuto uses the vending machine on that one too. After the intense battle, Kazuto levels up to 7. He and Momo cheer together, overjoyed at their progress. Elsewhere, far away, a girl watches Kazuto's actions closely. She notes that he's clearly an LV holder, someone strong enough to sense her gaze from such a distance. Finally, she's found someone like herself, a human actively hunting monsters. Kazuto is exhausted after dealing with the goblins, but Momo quickly lifts his spirits. She wags her tail and looks up at him cheerfully. He pets her non-stop and, almost immediately, starts to feel better. Honestly, he doesn't think he'll ever be able to stop petting her. Though the fight provided valuable experience, Kazuto knows there's still plenty of room for improvement. His teamwork with Momo, the Tabasco balloons, and the use of his item box were all useful tactics. But what he really needs are tools specifically designed to deal with monsters. That means he has to collect a lot more gear. However, the biggest issue right now isn't weapons, it's himself. His senses simply can't keep up with his dramatically increased AGI. He managed this time, but if he doesn't address this disconnect, it could cost him his life. He reminds himself not to get cocky. Kazuto uses some of his JP and SP to level up his assassin and hunter classes, but wisely keeps 3 SP in reserve, just in case. He gives all the soul stones to Momo and stores any useful-looking items into his item box. It's time to venture out again, so he instructs Momo to hide in his shadow. He's also leveled up his item box because he plans to gather necessities while continuing to hunt monsters. Just as he begins his journey, Kazuto hears something and instinctively looks up. A helicopter is flying overhead. The pattern on the aircraft identifies it as belonging to the Japan Defense Force. He wonders where it's headed, only to be shocked when he sees it's going straight for the shopping mall. Kazuto debates whether to go there and ask for help. But the memory of the high-ranking orc terrifies him. His danger sense is still warning him to stay away. He knows the JDF are elites, skilled in hand-to-hand combat, and equipped with weapons that vastly outperform his washing machines and vending machines. They're clearly on a different level than he is. After thinking it over, Kazuto decides to observe from a distance. Thanks to his farsight skill, he doesn't need to get close. He chooses an apartment building nearby, one that isn't setting off any danger alerts. He instructs Momo to stay hidden in his shadow and begins moving. He hasn't gone far when he senses multiple humans nearby. A group of people is running toward the mall, hoping the JDF will save them. Kazuto realizes that these people must have been hiding until now. He can relate to their desperation. Still, he sticks to his plan and heads to the apartment building. When he senses no threats, he climbs to the rooftop, surveys the area, and tells Momo to come out. From their vantage point, the two watch as the helicopter lands in the parking lot. 5 soldiers emerge. Kazuto is amazed. They're still operating in a world gone mad. These men look powerful and carry the best weapons civilization can offer. Kazuto figures they'll gain EXP by hunting monsters with guns. But something catches his eye. Only 4 soldiers have firearms. The 5th is unarmed. Sao. Just then, Momo barks. She's sensed an orc in the area. It hasn't noticed the soldiers yet. Within seconds, it's taken down effortlessly. Kazuto is impressed by the one-sided combat. Guns seem unfair in this fantasy setting. 2 more orcs appear and are also eliminated with ease. Kazuto observes that the soldiers are aiming even before the orcs come into view. It's likely a sensory skill, something similar to his track enemy or enemy sense. Unlike him, though, they appear to be sharing intel and wielding overwhelming long-range firepower. It gives Kazuto hope maybe this strategy could actually work. Then, the terrifying roar of the big orc echoes through the air. Kazuto instantly ducks and grabs Momo as she wraps them in her shadow. Once the roar fades, Kazuto checks on Momo, relieved to find she's unharmed, probably because the roar wasn't close enough to affect them. He immediately rushes to check on the JDF. Thankfully, all 5 appear to be alive and communicating, although Kazuto can't hear their words from this distance. However, there's no sign of the high orc. That changes fast. Without warning, the helicopter crashes and explodes, brought down by the big orc. Kazuto is stunned. The high orc managed to jump up and crash the aircraft with sheer power. It throws the pilot toward the soldiers, eliminating one with the impact alone. The rest of the team opens fire, but the orc shields itself with its massive arms and closes the distance in seconds. One by one, the elite soldiers are taken out, unable to inflict even a scratch on their opponent. The high orc lets out another roar, this time to signal the swarm. Orcs begin moving toward the civilians who had approached the mall in hopes of rescue. Kazuto can't bear to watch. He realizes now that the JDF must have only sent one skilled individual to this town because stronger monsters likely exist elsewhere. Dragons, phoenixes. The very thought chills him. Deep down, a part of him had hoped someone would fix this nightmare. But watching the JDF fall confirms it. He can rely on no one but himself. He tells Momo to follow him. They have to get stronger. Together, they head toward the home center located opposite the mall. As soon as they leave, a girl steps out of hiding. She watches them go with slight disappointment, clearly hoping they would notice her. She knows she could initiate a conversation, but the idea of approaching strangers is overwhelming. Moving on, Kazuto comes across a new scene. Two groups of people are arguing over a hiding spot. One group, numbering 12, consists mostly of middle-aged adults. The other group has 5 rowdy-looking middle schoolers who resemble delinquents. Kazuto activates his skills to assess the situation and detects that more people are inside the building. He uses sharp ear to listen in. As he's still contemplating what to do, someone named Nishino steps out of the building to investigate the noise. Quickly grasping the situation, Nishino tells everyone that they can't be allowed in unless they agree to some conditions. Nishino tells the people that they can't accept them unless they fulfill some conditions first. Kazuto wonders if he's going to ask for a beautiful girl, but contrary to his expectations, Nishino asks if someone among them is willing to eliminate monsters. The new group is visibly shocked, but Nishino calmly explains that even one hunt would be acceptable. The older group complains and eyes the weapons warily, but Nishino further explains that by hunting monsters, their levels will increase. He reminds them that surviving these 2 days was already a risk to their lives, and if they are now asking for cooperation, then they must offer compensation in return. Kazuto thinks that presenting the information and conditions so bluntly is a bit too straightforward. However, the middle-aged group doesn't seem convinced that this world has become a game-like setting, complete with levels and skills. Kazuto pities them. These old hags can't see the truth even now. They even start begging Nishino's group for help, making Kazuto silently conclude that they're just a troublesome bunch. Not wanting to get involved in the mess, he quietly leaves the area. At the supermarket, Kazuto comes across more students stacking goods. He wonders if they're also part of Nishino's group. However, they don't seem to possess item box. Once they leave, Kazuto enters the supermarket with Momo and begins harvesting supplies, having leveled up his item box. Everything vanishes into his storage at once, making him ecstatic. The item box's range has increased to 5 meters. Kazuto then heads to a nearby store to collect even more. Just like that, he manages to gather everything from one side of the area, and he notices there doesn't seem to be a storage limit. Curious about what happened at the home center earlier, he decides to go check it out. Using track sense, he finds that the refugees ended up accepting the offer in the end. He sneaks around the home center and decides to invade from the rear. Momo uses her shadow skill to open a window, earning Kazuto's thanks as he slips inside. It looks like someone was here just a while ago. Kazuto looks around cautiously, but hides himself immediately upon sensing people nearby. He observes that Nishino is clearly the leader here, so he decides to gather information before collecting any more supplies. Nishino's group seems hesitant about accepting newcomers, viewing it as a potential risk. However, Nishino argues that relying solely on their own group is no longer enough. He asks whether they should believe in the level and skill system that Shihata had mentioned. The others are skeptical, noting that Shihata is actually against hunting monsters. They're currently risking their lives just to stock up, but they'll have to bear it until their levels increase. Nishino, however, thinks outsiders are no issue because, against his skill, they're nothing but pawns. They even plan to use others as bait when it comes time to run. Kazuto is honestly impressed that they're discussing such heartless things so coolly. Clearly, they're confident, but he still wonders if they can really use skills. Suddenly, a boy bursts into the room with troubling news. Kazuto stiffens, worried that it's about the big orc or an even stronger monster. But the boy announces that the drugstore, convenience store, and supermarket have all been emptied. Of course, the culprit is Kazuto. Tension rises immediately on the other side. They had enough supplies for 3 days, but with the new group added, it now only covers 1. Nishino instructs the boy to pass this info on to the others. He can't believe that everything was raided in just 2 hours and assumes that whoever did it must be high level and able to use skills. They speculate the person may have an item box or some movement magic like in light novels. Though they consider searching for the raider, Nishino asserts that since the whole thing was so deliberate, there's no way the person would negotiate. Kazuto wants to tell them he meant no harm and that they shouldn't jump to conclusions, but it's too late. They're already preparing for a possible attack. After they leave, Kazuto finally stands up and sighs heavily, weighed down by the big misunderstanding. There's nothing he can do about it now, so he heads for a new hiding place and eats in stress. But just as he begins to relax, he's alerted by the presence of monsters. His skills confirm that 4 are heading toward the home center. Kazuto and Momo immediately move out to intercept them. Outside the home center, 4 lesser wolves appear, manageable enemies. Momo surveys the surroundings as Kazuto notes that the students guarding the entrance haven't noticed the threat. Momo rubs against Kazuto's legs to grab his attention. He assumes she's trying to say the monsters are weak, but he's wrong. Kazuto tells her they can't keep the lesser wolves since they're still monsters. Momo seems to understand, so Kazuto refocuses on the threat. The wolves pause and sniff the air, tracking the human's scent. Kazuto considers launching a surprise attack or dashing in while the students are distracted. He doesn't know the students' skill levels, but if things go well, maybe a mutual alliance can form. The students finally notice the wolves, but it's too late. One of them is immediately attacked. Another student tries to help, but Kazuto notes his strange fighting style. He tends to his wounded friend, but luckily Nishino and his group arrive. Nishino orders treatment for the injured as the rest prepare to fight. One of the wolves suddenly sniffs the air and lets out a piercing howl. The students are confused until the answer becomes obvious. Zombies and goblins start flooding in. That howl had called for backup, attracting every kind of monster nearby. Kazuto realizes he misjudged the situation. The monsters are using conceal and erase presence to mask their approach, rendering Kazuto's detection skills ineffective. They are now surrounded. Escape is no longer an option. With no other choice, Kazuto orders Momo to hunt. The enemies close in from all directions, but that's nothing Item Box can't fix. Home appliances begin dropping like rain. Kazuto crushes monster after monster, eventually leveling up to 8. 1 lesser wolf remains, but Momo binds it with shadow. Kazuto finishes it with an appliance and gathers the soul stones, giving them all to Momo to munch on. However, the howling hasn't stopped. More than 20 monsters are still out there. Despite everything, Kazuto makes the call to retreat. He feels bad for the students but can only wish them luck. As he escapes, he notices that even the refugees have joined the battle. Nishino fights too, activating some sort of buff skill. Yet what truly grabs Kazuto's attention is a girl wielding twin blades. She single-handedly takes down monsters in mere seconds. He's amazed by her combat prowess and guesses she's using a strength or berserk skill. Intrigued as he is, Kazuto hurries on until his danger and enemy sense skills suddenly flare. Then comes the chilling sound, the loud, guttural howl of a shadow wolf. Kazuto looks at the shadow wolf as it leaps from the rooftop toward him. It's true that he defeated one before, but that had only been by sheer accident. There's no running now unless he can take it down himself. He immediately spends 10 SP to level up his item box to level 10. The shadow wolf howls and attacks, using the same shadow-based skills as Momo. Kazuto takes a quick step back and uses item box to form a barricade, but to his shock, the shadow wolf manipulates the shadows to catch the items mid-air and tears them apart with ease. It then lunges at Kazuto and Momo, but they manage to dodge in time. Its agility and movement aren't comparable to mere goblins or lesser wolves. It springs through the air like a coiled force of nature. Momo barks and counters with her shadow attacks, but their shadows cancel each other out. As a last resort, Kazuto drops appliances from above, hoping to crush the beast, but the shadow wolf seizes them mid-air using its shadows. Kazuto is stunned. The appliances weigh hundreds of kilos. The very strategy that buried countless monsters has failed against this foe. He realizes this creature is far stronger than expected. Still, there's a chance he can defeat it, considering his past feats. The real problem is figuring out how to strike. To make matters worse, the lesser wolves begin advancing toward him. Kazuto mutters in frustration, they should be heading to the home center, not after him. The roar from the shadow wolf was probably heard by the students, so Kazuto knows he can't do anything too conspicuous. The lesser wolves leap at him all at once. He realizes he'll die if he doesn't fight now. Thankfully, the lesser wolves can still be defeated using the heavy home appliances from Item Box, but the shadow wolf is still a threat, so Kazuto runs with Momo, dropping massive items behind them to buy some time. With Item Box now at level 10, he decides to test its limits. He stops in an open space, takes a breath, and drops his old, decommissioned car on the shadow wolf. Of course, one car isn't enough, so he follows up with several more. He had managed to gather some while running earlier, and now he uses them all to put an end to the monster. Kazuto knows that the shadow wolf can't jump over the cars. Momo, who has the same skill, can't manipulate shadows without touching the ground, so the wolf is trapped. Moreover, if it's surrounded from all sides, it can't gain the momentum needed to leap, even for a moment. His biggest concern is whether it possesses Momo's shadow sneak skill. So, once the wolf is boxed in, Momo binds it using shadow, and Kazuto drops another car to finish it for good. He gains EXP and reaches level 9. After storing the wreckage in Item Box, he picks up the Soul Stone. They return to the home center, where Nishino is motivating the others to hang in there. He seems to sense something, and turns around, looking directly at Kazuto. But Kazuto knows he couldn't have been seen. His darkness skill is active. None of the students acknowledge his presence. Kazuto thinks Nishino is incredible. If he were in that situation, he wouldn't have the courage to speak so confidently. As the students continue fighting, Kazuto quietly slips away. On the way back, he takes out a few goblins and gains enough EXP to reach level 10. Back at his hiding place, Kazuto flops down onto the couch, completely exhausted. But before sleeping, he checks his status window. During the earlier fight, he had heard a system announcement, Item Box has reached its maximum level, and the conditions for an upgrade have been unlocked. He's overjoyed to upgrade his only weapon. The new version offers increased storage capacity, and each upgrade now costs 3 SP. He gets to it immediately. Afterward, Kazuto gives the magic stones to Momo and inspects his updated stats. He suspects Momo is about to level up soon too. After all, he's already hit level 10. The two curl up for the night, ending the second day in the new world. The next morning, Kazuto wakes beside Momo and greets her cheerfully. He notices she's grown a bit bigger and asks if she leveled up while sleeping. He tells her to inform him immediately if she feels any changes. They leave the house once more and arrive at a nearby construction site. The place feels like a treasure trove for weapons. No monsters are around, so it must have been recently raided. Kazuto is amazed that his level 10 item box can gather materials of such quality. As he prepares to head toward the home center, something catches his eye. A chest in the corner. A literal treasure chest. Kazuto is stunned to see one in this world, but he's suspicious. His enemy sense, danger sense, and track enemy aren't picking anything up, which only makes it more suspicious. He asks Momo to open it using shadow. As expected, it's a trap, a mimic that intercepted his skills. Kazuto doesn't hesitate and crushes it instantly, earning EXP and a mimic magic stone. On their way back, Kazuto spots a slime oozing along the path. It appears to be peacefully munching on grass and doesn't look dangerous. Curious, Kazuto asks Momo if she wants to hunt it. Momo uses shadow to capture it, but the slime is too slippery and escapes her grasp. Agitated, Momo growls, but Kazuto calms her down and drops an object on the slime to immobilize it. Shockingly, the slime slips away again. They're both baffled. Kazuto wonders if slimes are immune to physical damage and tests it by striking with a blade. No effect. Thinking fast, he pulls out oil and matchsticks. Fire might work. Sure enough, the slime burns away, leaving behind a soul stone. It's the first monster he's encountered that resists physical attacks. Kazuto concludes that slimes are weak to fire and wishes the big orc had such an exploitable weakness, but he doubts it. Meanwhile, Nishino assigns Shibata and Uno to scout the surrounding area. Their food supplies are running low, so preventing depletion is critical. They also plan to find another stronghold. The remaining members prepare for an expedition to raise their levels. However, Nishino tells them not to go just yet. He and Roko will train the weaker ones. Roko grumbles that it's a pain, but Nishino insists. Even a little boost in fighting power matters. Roko understands, but pessimistically believes some members will never level up. She even suggests using them as fodder. Nishino snaps at her, warning her not to repeat that idea. Raka apologizes, and he cautions that they can't let the others know about such thoughts. If they did, people would start leaving, and that would be a disaster. Elsewhere, Kazuto arrives in front of the home center and notes that the students seem less nervous than the day before. He moves a bit closer but struggles to decide what to do next. Just then, he hears someone talking and uses eavesdropping to listen in. It seems the higher-level students are teaching the lower-level ones. They're discussing SP, JP, and skills, and asking each person about their current stats. Kazuto realizes they're trying to collectively decide how to allocate points. That's when it hits him. He was the only one who started with 10 SP and 10 JP. It's probably because of his fast growth skill. Listening further, he learns that the others have already chosen their skills. Until now, he had no real point of comparison, but it turns out he was luckier than average from the very start. Noting the presence of Nishino and the rest, Kazuto quietly leaves behind some useful materials for them. On his way back, he muses aloud, fast growth really is a cheat skill. He notices something rustling in the trash and finds another slime rummaging through garbage. It looks harmless, and Kazuto thinks defeating it would be a waste of time. But then he notices, this one is red. Every slime he's seen until now was blue. Thinking this might be a stronger class, Kazuto takes out a plastic tray to test it. The red slime moves forward and starts eating the tray. Kazuto concludes it behaves like a living microbe, breaking down material as it goes. Suddenly, the red slime slithers toward him. A system announcement appears. The red slime wants to be your friend. The announcement states that the red slime wants to become Kazuto's ally, but Kazuto finds it hard to believe this is actually happening. While there may be some merit to making allies, he knows that monsters are effective when it comes to attacking, but they tend to be a burden when it comes to speed and movement. He assumes the slime will just become extra baggage that both he and Momo will have to carry around. So, without much hesitation, Kazuto declines the offer. The red slime immediately deflates, its mood turning gloomy. Kazuto, however, walks away with Momo casually chatting about what they should have for lunch. Meanwhile, multiple orcs and goblins are being picked off one by the sniper girl from a safe distance. She gains experience points, but she's growing uneasy. The number of nearby monsters is decreasing. Given her job and skills, staying in one place is safer, but if she remains here, she'll stagnate. She knows survival requires teamwork, and recalls seeing Kazuto and Momo fighting back at the supermarket. At first glance, she thought they were the type to die quickly, but they were unexpectedly cute, especially Momo. She finds herself wanting to see the dog again. Still, she opens her map to scout the surrounding area. She needs to gather household tools and food, meaning she can't avoid moving any longer. Back in his trashed apartment, Kazuto returns with Momo. He pulls out some food for her, but she turns up her nose at the cheap stuff. It looks like she's developed a taste for the finer things. Sighing, Kazuto gives in and offers her one of the premium meals. Momo perks up instantly, tail wagging with joy. Kazuto warns her not to get used to it. They don't have many of those fancy meals left. The two enjoy lunch together and then collapse on the floor, satisfied and full. In a world now overrun with monsters, simple moments like this feel all the more precious. Kazuto quietly reflects on how food like this used to feel mundane, yet now it's oddly comforting. He then remembers that Momo can also eat soul stones, so he pulls one out to offer her, but when she sees it's a mimic soul stone, she immediately turns away. When Kazuto doesn't take it away fast enough, she goes as far as to toss it out the window. Shocked, Kazuto scolds her gently, reminding her not to throw things like that. When he heads outside to retrieve it, he finds the red slime waiting right outside the door. Apparently it followed them back. Kazuto tells it again that they can't be allies, but then he notices The soul stone Momo threw out is now inside the red slime. Kazuto tells the slime to return it, but before he can act, Momo steps forward and starts barking at him. Panicking, Kazuto wonders if Momo is angry with him now, but she shakes her head and he realizes she wants to be friends with the red slime, probably because it returned her soul stone. He still finds it odd that Momo is acting this way. Maybe it's because the red slime can help her pick up magic stones? The slime wiggles in response and transforms into the plastic tray from earlier. Kazuto observes that while its texture remains slimy and its weight is unchanged, he can't detect it as an enemy when it's mimicking something. Its mimicry is surprisingly effective, and Momo seems to really like it. Kazuto realizes the two are getting along. If the red slime gives Momo the mimic magic stone, she might even learn mimicry herself. Then another announcement sounds, once again offering to form an alliance. With a sigh, Kazuto finally gives in. The slime's abilities complement his skill set well. It seems the red slime can't attack directly, so he wonders how else it contributes. Momo insists it's strong, and Kazuto chooses to believe in both her and the slime. That's how the red slime officially becomes their ally. Another system message appears. Conditions fulfilled. Job Beastmaster has evolved into Monster Tamer. Kazuto ignores it for now. He's too focused on how adorable the slime looks beside Momo. Deciding it deserves a name, he chooses Aka. The slime wiggles excitedly at the name, and somehow Momo's level increases as well. Now the trio sets out together. Kazuto asks if Aka is okay, as it has taken the form of his jacket. Aka wiggles, indicating it's a bit ticklish, but fine. Apparently Aka can transform into anything it can eat, though it's limited to objects of a similar size at its current level. It also cannot mimic living things. Right now, Aka has transformed into a defensive vest, and Kazuto notices his defense has drastically increased. He's impressed and decides to test Aka's capabilities and work on raising its level. After taking down a few monsters, Kazuto reaches level 11. He upgrades some of his existing skills and saves the rest of the points for later. Since both Aka and Momo feed on magic stones, he gives one to each. AK enjoys the stone, but something seems off with Momo. She starts shivering, and her shadow spreads around her. Kazuto panics, but quickly checks the status window. It reveals that Momo has reached level 10 and evolved into an assassin dog at level 1. Her appearance, however, hasn't changed. He asks if she feels different anywhere, but everything seems fine. Kazuto is relieved. Given the evolution, he was afraid she might have become something like a shadow wolf, but she's still the same cute Momo, and that's what matters most. Curious, he checks out Momo's new skills. Just then, a group of goblins and a hobgoblin appears nearby, perfect for testing. Momo quickly restrains the goblins with her shadows and squeezes them until they're gone. Kazuto finishes off the hobgoblin and reaches level 12. He notes that Momo's combat and constriction abilities have greatly improved. Still, when compared to stronger monsters, their power isn't quite enough. There's a strange, unsettled feeling in Kazuto's chest. He decides to linger on this path a bit longer before choosing a new direction. Meanwhile, Shibata is paralyzed with fear as he watches his friends die one after another at the hands of an unknown monster. They had ventured out, hoping to expand their safe zone and secure more food. But then, goblins and zombies ambushed them. He had believed they could handle tougher enemies and return with supplies. Now, hope is gone. With no help in sight, Shibata turns and runs, abandoning his last remaining comrades. He tries to reach Nishino, but fails. In despair, he thinks that this monster will just keep living, and his friends will keep dying. The big orc believes his life is devoid of any amusement. No matter where he goes, he only encounters maggots, creatures too weak to pose a challenge. His true desire isn't to trample such feeble beings underfoot, but to fight. A real battle, one that could push him to the limits of his strength and skill. He had high hopes for the human soldiers, but they too turned out to be disappointments. Now, his patience is wearing thin, and there is only one thing that can quell his growing frustration: the hunt. Letting out a deafening roar, he declares that his time of rest is over. Meanwhile, Kazuto is wandering through the city when he comes across Nishino's group. To his disbelief, The guys are casually munching on snacks during a rationing period, even as Uno urges them to get moving. This turns into a classic scene of bullies ignoring the voice of reason. Just then, Kazuto notices two lesser wolves approaching the group. Initially startled, the students regain their bravado when Uno warns them to flee. They scoff, believing two lesser wolves are no threat at all. Uno warns them again. These monsters can summon reinforcements, and if that happens, they'll be overwhelmed in an instant. Kazuto silently agrees with the bespectacled student. After all, just yesterday, those wolves summoned allies, and it turned into a complete nightmare. Still, the bullies insist they can defeat the wolves before they call for backup. Kazuto thinks this is a naive belief. There's no way they can beat the monsters quickly enough. Sure enough, even with only two wolves, the students are already getting pushed back. Uno, paralyzed by fear, runs away on his own. Kazuto doesn't blame him. The others ignored his warning and are now paying the price. He's convinced at least one of them is about to die, until, suddenly, one of the wolves explodes near a student. Even the students are confused, but they waste no time and flee the scene. Kazuto quickly scans the area, locating the source of the shot. It came from a tall building nearby. He wonders if it was a sniper from the police or military, since the weapon used was clearly a gun. Just then, something unexpected happens. He receives a mail notification. Kazuto is as shocked as any reader would be, but the system clarifies that the mail function has unlocked after certain conditions were met. Still dumbfounded, Kazuto is reminded by Momo that they should take shelter. They retreat to an apartment, and once safe, Kazuto investigates this new feature. Although he can't fully use the mail system yet, he's able to access its interface. One unread message awaits him, from someone named Natsu. He has no idea who that is. Upon opening the message, he learns that the sniper from earlier is Natsu. She explains that she only saw him by coincidence when the monster appeared and decided to help because watching innocent people die left a bitter taste in her mouth. Her real intention is to propose an alliance, though she writes the request in a very formal, business-like tone. Kazuto is taken aback by the message, but her intentions don't seem malicious. In fact, she even praised Momo. A sniper would make a great ally, but it could also be a trap. Natsu mentioned seeing him fight the day before, so it's possible she knows about his item box. He recalls feeling someone's gaze back then and concludes that ignoring her might not be wise. He tries to buy some time, but he's unable to reply yet. The skill is still locked. Elsewhere, Natsu sighs after hitting send. She feels that this is the perfect communication method for someone as socially awkward as her. She's thrilled at the idea of finally meeting Momo. Wanting to join a party, she poured her true emotions into that message. She believes their skill sets complement each other perfectly in battle. Now, all she has to do is wait for a reply so she can finally cuddle with Momo. Watching from her building, she sees Kazuto disappear behind a wall and wonders if he received the message. Worried she might seem suspicious, she sends another message, then another, and another. The barrage continues, until she finally gets a reply. Kazuto informs her that he couldn't respond earlier because the mail skill wasn't unlocked. He politely asks her to stop spamming him. Relieved, Natsu replies briefly. However, she immediately questions why Kazuto's message was so short. Back in the apartment, Kazuto is experiencing the darker side of communication. Receiving 45 messages in under an hour was terrifying. The stress was so intense that his stress-resistant skill actually leveled up from 5 to 6. Despite that, he seriously considers avoiding Natsu forever. She may not be a bad person, but she's definitely unhinged. Another message from her doesn't help. At level 2, the mail function unlocks chat. Kazuto groans and sends a passive-aggressive reply saying he still needs more time to think things through. Now he's more concerned than ever. How did she even acquire a gun in Japan, a country with such strict weapon regulations? Having a ranged support member would be incredibly helpful, but if she betrayed him, a single bullet would be all it took. He decides to keep messaging her for now. Unfortunately, she replies very quickly. At the home center, Uno arrives and is immediately questioned by Nishino about the others. Uno says they were separated during a monster attack. Nishino is glad Uno made it back safely, but when Uno asks about Shibata's group, Nishino reveals they haven't returned either. A search party will be sent in an hour, but for now, looking for Uno's group must wait. Uno keeps trying to convince himself that none of this is his fault. Suddenly, Shibata arrives at the home center, but his condition leaves everyone speechless. Far from the town, Kazuto finds himself wandering near a body of water. There, he spots slimes floating on the surface. Aka emerges from hiding and seems to communicate with Momo. She uses her shadow skill to capture one of the slimes. AKA approaches and starts eating it. Kazuto is stunned, not just because slimes can eat each other, but because what happens next defies belief. AKA trembles and then splits into two smaller slimes. The new slimes look at Kazuto with expectation in their eyes, and he praises them both. Not wanting to feel left out, Momo also asks for praise, so Kazuto gives her plenty. AK wants more slimes, so Momo helps capture them. Once Aka's had its fill, Kazuto decides it's time to move on. But then, his enemy sense skill activates. An orc is approaching. It charges at them, so Momo binds it with her shadow. Kazuto attempts to crush it using an item from his item box, but the orc breaks free and rushes at him, weapon in hand. Too fast to dodge, Kazuto braces for impact, only for Aka to leap in and block the attack. Then, the dropped item falls directly onto the orc, crushing it. Kazuto thanks Aka for the clutch save. He's shaken. That orc attacked with clear intent and strategy. These monsters aren't mindless, they're conscious and aware. Suddenly, his enemy sense goes off again. This time, he's facing a pack of shadow wolves. Kazuto stares at the pack of shadow wolves and wonders if the orc from earlier had actually been fleeing from them. Hunting down even one of those beasts had been tough, let alone facing a whole pack. He immediately decides to retreat and go back the way he came. Meanwhile, Natsu is still perched atop a tall building, waiting for Kazuto's reply. She knows she's a bit much to deal with, especially when she floods people with messages, so she chooses to wait patiently for now. During the downtime, she hunts monsters to gain some exp. She feels grateful for the incredible gun she received, which compensates for her otherwise poor stats. Still, a small part of her wonders if choosing the shut-in job was a mistake. Regardless, she dreams of cuddling Momo someday, if possible, a lot. For now, she decides to focus on leveling up and resumes hunting. Just 3 days ago, Natsu really was the definition of a shut-in. She spent every day glued to her computer, playing online games non-stop after dropping out of school. After 3 straight days of gaming, she began to lose her edge and make more mistakes, so she reluctantly decided to take a break. That was when she encountered a monstrous-looking bug in her room. Thinking it was just an especially hideous insect, she squashed it. To her shock, a system notification appeared. Assuming it was just a weird dream, she selected the shut-in job purely for the laughs. Now, Natsu genuinely laughs at her own situation. Her stats have been severely weakened because of her impulsive job choice. However, she does have access to a unique skill that granted her the gun and unlocked other job options. Feeling down about her backstory, Natsu decides she needs to cheer herself up. She activates her special skill, which brings up a gacha game interface where she can spend 1 SP for 3 rolls. Like a true gambler, she's filled with excitement as she opens the capsules one by one. The white one contains food, not what she hoped for. She's aiming for a blue or black capsule, which typically yields skills or job-related rewards. She's previously received her male skill from a rare capsule, so she's hopeful. The blue capsule gives her 3 SP, which she considers a win. The final capsule is black. It grants her the body strengthening skill, one she's always wanted. With her spirits high, Natsu prepares to level up more, but then she spots a group of orcs below. She's aware that she can't take on the big orc, but curiosity strikes. Where are they headed? The only notable location up ahead is the home center. Kazuto, having finally escaped the shadow wolves, decides to rest. He summons the knife used by the orc earlier and analyzes it. It's a decent weapon, suitable for the time being. He then remembers the male feature and checks it, having put it on silent earlier. He finds a message from Natsu informing him about the orcs and the sighting of a particularly large one. Kazuto begins to suspect that the orcs who had been stationed at the shopping mall have started to move, likely in search of prey. A bad feeling creeps in. He worries for Nishino and the others. At the home center, Nishino praises Shibata for making it back alive. Shibata, burdened by guilt, calls himself a coward for abandoning his friends. But Nishino reassures him. If Shibata had died too, they would never have known about the orc threat. He consoles him further, but Roko interrupts, pressing for their next move. Nishino considers relocating to another stronghold, but loud noises from outside cut that plan short. They're too late. Nishino and the group rush to the entrance and realize they're in deep trouble. More than 10 orcs have gathered, each one stronger than any they've seen before. The elder group, usually full of complaints, is now frozen in terror and of no help. What makes matters worse is the giant orc standing at the rear. Its presence alone feels otherworldly. Nishino turns to Roko and asks if she can take on the big orc, but she takes one glance and flatly refuses. Even using her berserk skill at full power wouldn't be enough. With no other option, Nishino announces that they're moving to Strategy 4. His group is stunned, while the elder group panics. They've never heard of a fourth strategy before. Until now, Nishino had categorized their plans from 1 to 3. Strategy 4 involves using the evacuees as decoys so the main group can escape. Naturally, only Nishino's core team knows the details. He tells them they'll implement the plan once they reach the rear of the building. Some hesitate, but Nishino urges them to steel themselves if they want to survive. There's no way he's going to let them die here. As Kazuto returns to town, rain begins to fall. He notices smoke and fire in the direction of the home center. Natsu sends him a message about the fire and urges him to respond to her party request. Kazuto asks Aka to transform into a rain poncho and heads toward the source. Along the way, he senses 2 living individuals near the park, but they aren't moving. When he reaches the park, he finds Nishino and Roko, both badly injured. Nishino notices his presence and reaches out a hand. Kazuto hesitates, but Momo emerges from her shadow and rushes toward them. Nishino can't quite make out what's coming, but at this point, he'll accept help from anyone. Momo pulls at Kazuto, urging him to assist. He finally gives in and carries the 2 injured students into a nearby safe building. He begins tending to their wounds. Roko's injuries appear to have healed under her blood-stained clothes, likely due to skills like self-healing or regeneration. Still, Kazuto disinfects the wound and bandages it for good measure. After leaving behind medicine, bandages, and energy drinks, he silently takes his leave. Outside, Kazuto ponders his next move. If Nishino and Roko ran from the home center, then that area is now swarming with orcs. He decides to send Natsu a warning message, advising her to evacuate since her building is close to the home center. To his surprise, there's no mail from her. That's when his enemy sense skill suddenly triggers. A moment later, the building in front of him explodes. Kazuto's eyes widen in shock. The massive orc stands atop the rubble. Looking back, he realizes it was foolish to assume only humans would use such an advantageous vantage point. And now, the big orc has locked eyes with him. That is no good. This is the 3rd time Kazuto has heard the roar of the big orc. He immediately tells Momo to hide and makes a run for it, as the big orc is glaring at him like he's nothing more than prey. Kazuto knows he needs to get as far away as possible. As he runs, both his escape and fear resistance skills level up, but no matter how far he gets, his danger sense and hostility sense don't stop flaring. The big orc remains perched on top of the building, until it suddenly squats and lets out a deafening roar. Before the sound even reaches Kazuto's ears, the orc has already landed in front of him. Kazuto can't believe his eyes. The monster casually cracks its neck like it's just warming up. Momo immediately uses her shadow to restrict the orc, but as expected, it's nowhere near enough to stop it from moving. Thinking fast, Kazuto drops a crane from his item box. The big orc catches it effortlessly with one hand and hurls it back like it's a toy. One part of Aka quickly forms a protective shell around Kazuto, while the other tries to block the crane. Kazuto crashes into a nearby wall, cushioned by Aka, and emerges from the blob in one piece. He thanks Aka for saving his life, but the big orc steps forward. Kazuto stares up at the approaching monster, wondering what terrible thing he's done to deserve this. Has the world always been this unfair? In desperation, he starts emptying the contents of his item box onto the orc. One after another, useless objects fall. Water bottles, water balloons, anything he can throw. Of course, nothing works. The towering beast doesn't even flinch. With one powerful swing, the big orc slaps Kazuto and sends him flying across the field. It's the first time Kazuto has ever been seriously injured in a fight against a monster. The pain is unbearable. He screams for help, a raw, desperate cry, one that no one is around to hear. Just when he begins to lose hope, Momo emerges from the shadows and stands protectively in front of him. Kazuto notices that she's trembling too. She's afraid. He tries to stop her, raising a hand in protest. But instead, Momo bites his outstretched hand gently and presses her face against his. Then, with a defiant bark, she dashes forward toward the big orc. She launches her shadow attack, trying to restrain it. The big orc responds with a shout, a skill that unleashes a shockwave. Momo wraps herself in her shadows to lessen the blow, but the sheer force sends her flying across the ground. Despite the impact, she rises again. She growls lowly, baring her teeth, and then sinks them into the orc's arm. The beast tries to shake her off. She doesn't let go. Frustrated, the orc raises its other hand, the one holding a massive weapon. Kazuto watches in horror. His heart pounds as he realizes what's about to happen. He shouts for her to stop, begs her to retreat. If that weapon hits her, she won't survive. But Momo doesn't move. The big orc swings. Chapter 11. Momo used to come play with him. Just seeing her would heal Kazuto's exhaustion from work in an instant. He remembers the time they spent together, ever since the beginning, ever since the world changed like this. And now, the big orc is about to strike her down right in front of his eyes. Of course, Kazuto refuses to let that happen. He shouts for Momo to dodge as he drops all kinds of junk from his item box onto the big orc. The monster slashes through it all, but the brief distraction gives Kazuto enough time to safely catch Momo in his arms. He scolds her for doing something so dangerous, but Momo licks his face in response. Kazuto doesn't understand why she'd go that far for him, but her look tells him everything. It's only natural. She would do it again in a heartbeat. He thanks her and stands up because he's made up his mind now. He steels himself to overcome fear and death. If he doesn't stand his ground now, Momo and Akka will die. Kazuto becomes determined to fight to his last breath and searches desperately for a way to bring this monster down. His observation skill levels up as he mentally revisits every encounter involving the big orc, Nishino, Rocco, and Natsu. Through this focus, he unlocks concentration. Then he finds it, a possible weak point. He'll have to bet everything on this single chance. Kazuto and Momo approach the big orc together. He uses his upgraded observation skill to track the orc's movements and, with enhanced reflexes, deflects its weapon. He then pulls something small from his item box and throws it at the monster. The big orc dodges it in a panic. That proves Kazuto's theory. He had always found it strange that the big orc spared both him and Nishino, but now he understands why. Kazuto quickly uses the item box to drop large quantities of water on the big orc. The creature shrieks in pain as the liquid hits its body. Just as slimes are weak to fire, orcs, especially this one, are weak to water. He recalls how the big orc had always avoided plastic bottles and cigarettes. Even with its cheat-class muscles and overwhelming strength, Nishino's group managed to escape because it was raining during their battle. And earlier, when Kazuto threw a plastic bottle, the orc reacted abnormally. That moment confirmed it. With the orc's defenses weakened, Momo attacks using her shadows. This time, it works. The orc stumbles, wounded but far from finished. It suddenly starts laughing. Kazuto's eyes widen as the monster undergoes berserk. This is even more dangerous than Rocco's version of the skill. It doesn't just feel unfair, it feels like cheating. The big orc throws a punch at Kazuto, sending him flying. It then dashes after him mid-air and throws another punch. Thankfully, Akka shields Kazuto just in time. Kazuto drops more items from the item box to buy time, but the orc is faster than him now. He draws his blade and points it toward the beast, only for it to be swatted away like a toy. Kazuto freezes. He curses under his breath as the orc raises its weapon to strike. He's out of options. There's no time left. And then, a gunshot. The orc's eye explodes. Kazuto scans his surroundings and spots Natsu on a nearby building. Relief washes over him. She's alive. Seizing the moment, he dumps more water onto the orc. Momo, too, attacks with her shadows and binds the creature. Kazuto capitalizes on the opportunity and drops multiple vehicles onto the monster, but the big orc still doesn't fall. In fact, it looks amused. That enrages Kazuto. Fueled by adrenaline and fury, he charges the orc, gripping his blade tight, and drives it straight into the monster's chest. The big orc lets out a final smile as it collapses onto the ground, dead. It leaves behind a soul stone. Kazuto's level rises to 16. A system notification confirms the subjugation of a named monster, Rufin. He falls to the ground, unconscious, unable to believe he actually won. Kazuto wakes to the sound of Momo's voice. He's overwhelmed with relief to find both her and himself still alive. It wouldn't have been strange if he had died this time. That big orc was beyond dangerous. He notices his wounds have healed and finds 8 unread messages from Natsu. In her messages, she explains how she came immediately after the battle to heal him using her abilities. She also gushes about the cuties, Momo and Akka, and says she left the area for them to take care of things. Kazuto chuckles, knowing the real reason she left. Social interaction makes her anxious, but thanks to her, he survived. He writes her a message to express his gratitude. She replies almost instantly. She admits that she thought he was dead since he hadn't responded in so long. Kazuto then turns to Momo and Akka to ask if they'd be okay with Natsu joining their party. His heart has changed. If it weren't for her, he wouldn't have survived. She also helped him realize the orc's weakness by warning him about the home center. He wants to trust her. He wants to be her friend. Both Momo and Akka nod in agreement. Kazuto thanks them and sends Natsu the invitation. She accepts but says she wants to meet in person before making it official. In the meantime, she'll be preparing. Kazuto is a bit nervous about the meeting, so he's glad for the extra time. After sending his reply, Kazuto decides to head toward the shopping mall to test out his new skills. They're still alive, and he's going to keep surviving in this monster-infested world. Somewhere else, a monster is cleanly sliced in two by a girl wearing a sailor uniform. She turns to her dog, Kuro, and tells him that since they've already explored this area completely, it's time to head to the shopping mall. Chapter 12. Kazuto stands in front of a large staircase, but he has no idea what he's looking at. After defeating the big orc, he and his companions checked their stats and restocked supplies. Then, they made their way to the shopping mall. A pile of bodies lies rotting in a corner, their stench unbearable. It's only thanks to stress resistance that Kazuto doesn't gag. He takes a seat and opens his status window. Defeating just one big orc raised his level by 3, and he even gained a unique skill called Fast Learner. Before he fainted, a system announcement in his head mentioned a subjugation bonus, but no matter what he tried, nothing else happened. For now, Kazuto uses his available points to level up his assassin job, which unlocks his 3rd profession slot. The new advanced professions available are assassin, executioner, and ninja. Meanwhile, the secondary professions include darkness envoy, fugitive, smuggler, and shadow. While being a ninja seems appealing and comes with perks, Kazuto knows that no ninja in manga ever behaves without flair. He figures he should study their behavior before choosing a class. Stealth doesn't always work against some monsters, like orcs or shadow wolves, and stronger enemies are bound to appear as they go deeper into this world. So Kazuto picks a job that fits both his fighting style and survivability. He promotes assassin to ninja and gains several new skills. While ninjutsu sounds incredibly useful for battle, silent operation and odorless are even better for countering orcs and shadow wolves. Just as he's about to pick the 3rd profession, Momo snuggles into his lap and lets out her shadow, clearly recommending Shadow Master. AKA seems to agree. Kazuto considers choosing Wizard to better support the team, but both Momo and Akka shake their heads in disapproval. Relenting to their insistence, he selects Shadow Master and receives the Shadow Manipulation skill. He's a little disappointed that the 3rd job comes with only 1 skill, but it's definitely a powerful one. Next, he uses his remaining SP to level up Observation, hoping to unlock an appraisal skill. Instead, he obtains Prediction. After a brief internal meltdown, he calms down and uses the rest of his SP to upgrade other skills. Now, both his strength and endurance have crossed into 3-digit territory. Remembering the big orc's magic stone, Kazuto summons it and gives it to Momo as a gift. Afterward, they all try out their new abilities. Ninjutsu appears to be highly effective in actual combat, so Kazuto decides to head deeper into the mall. The food section is mostly spoiled by now. There are corpses strewn about, making Kazuto realize something chilling. These monsters don't eat humans. They must be hunting to raise their own levels and skills. He restocks on preserved food and grabs a few useful books from the mall's bookstore. Just as he finishes, Kazuto senses monsters approaching from outside the mall. It's the first time he's seen skeletons, but it gives him the perfect opportunity to test out his new skills. He uses shadow manipulation to capture them all and finds the skill far more versatile than expected. He lets Momo handle the rest, and she begins crushing the skeletons with her shadow tendrils. Kazuto notes that these skeletons have low defense, and he dispatches one himself with his blade. There are 3 more left, and Kazuto becomes curious when he sees their soul stones visibly exposed. He extracts one directly, causing the skeleton to collapse. Interestingly, the corpse remains, so Kazuto stores it in his item box, though he has no idea what use they might have later. With no other monsters around, Kazuto decides to rest for the night in the store. He crafts a makeshift haven by wrapping himself in shadow and layering it with Aka. The 3 of them sleep peacefully in their little sanctuary, but Kazuto's thoughts wander to Natsu. Meanwhile, Natsu's stomach aches from nervousness about the upcoming meeting. She's filled with anxiety over how their meetup will go. After dropping out of school for various personal reasons, she spent the past year avoiding all human contact. It had been easy to approach Kazuto while he was passed out, but meeting him in person? That terrifies her. Still, if she wants to cuddle Momo, be healed by her presence, and above all, if she wants to stand beside that person, she must overcome her shyness. For the sake of those she wishes to be close to, she steels her resolve. She'll do her best. It's now the 4th day in a world full of monsters. Kazuto wakes up with Momo and Aka by his side. He tells himself that he can't be nervous about meeting Natsu, but suddenly the ground rumbles for just a second, startling him. He looks around and spots ruins that weren't there before. Even more suspicious is that neither enemy sense nor enemy detection is picking anything up from them. It's not an illusion either. Momo sees it too. Kazuto initially wants to leave it alone, but since the ruins appeared the same way monsters do, they might contain clues about the transformation of their world. He consults Momo and Aka, and both seem ready to explore with him. Together they climb the stairs and enter the mysterious ruins. Kazuto uses the shadow skill to confirm that there are no enemies on the floor. Even traps can be detected. Still, he senses tension from Momo and Aka, who are hiding in the shadows. Eventually, he finds a stone pillar inscribed with unreadable text. Curious, Kazuto tries placing it into his item box, and to his surprise, it works. The name of the item is simple, but he hopes it's made from special material originating from another world. Venturing deeper, they come across a treasure box placed atop a platform, and so the exploration begins. Kazuto finds a treasure chest in the ruins. He immediately grows suspicious. Ruins that suddenly appeared with a mysterious altar inside, and now a treasure chest. It all screams mimic to him. Still, there's a chance it could be real, so he uses shadow to open the chest from a safe distance. To his surprise, the chest opens without any tricks, proving that it isn't a mimic. Kazuto gets so excited that he nearly panics, but Momo brings him back to his senses. Peering inside the chest, he finds a treasure map. However, the text on it is unreadable. Once the contents are removed, the treasure chest vanishes. Kazuto places the map into the item box, but it simply identifies it as parchment. He's confused, but figures he might be able to decipher it once he obtains a relevant skill. Aside from that, there's nothing else worth noting in the ruins. The more he thinks about it, the more mysterious everything feels. This world is like a game, but with no rules or information. Suddenly, his detection skill picks up 2 signals. Kazuto immediately hides in the shadows and spots a girl holding a Japanese sword. Beside her is a black dog, cautiously surveying the surroundings. The girl comments that the inside of the mall looks rough. Meanwhile, Kazuto is thankful his odorless skill is working, otherwise the dog might have sniffed him out. Still, the girl looks oddly familiar. After a moment, it hits him. A run-down dojo from his childhood in Koichi. The girl who lived there was named Katsuragi Sayaka. Kazuto accidentally mutters her name aloud, causing the girl to instantly go on alert and demand that he come out of hiding. With stealth now useless and escape not an option, Kazuto steps out and reassures her that he means no harm. Their eyes meet, and recognition sparks. She really is Sayaka from his memories. He greets her, but before he can say much, Sayaka rushes forward and hugs him tightly, overcome with emotion. Kazuto thinks it's strange that she missed him this much. Even her dog Kuro seems confused. Once she calms down, the two express how glad they are to see each other alive. Kazuto asks about her sword and how she ended up here. Sayaka explains that 4 days ago, she was chased by monsters on her way home. She barely made it back, only for another monster to break into her house. In desperation, she hid in the dojo's closet where she found her grandfather's sword, something he had collected as a hobby. She fought back, defeated the goblin, and awakened skills. From that moment, she was determined to search for her grandparents, but more monsters kept appearing. After hearing her story, Kazuto tells her it must have been incredibly hard. Sayaka agrees, but then realizes Kazuto must have had it rough as well and apologizes for talking only about herself. When Kazuto asks about her dog, she introduces him as Kuro. Aside from being cute, he's also gained skills. Kazuto warns her that sharing such important information too easily could be dangerous, but he understands it's because she trusts him. To return the gesture, Kazuto calls out Momo and introduces her. Sayaka is beyond shocked. Kazuto explains that Momo also has skills, and Sayaka awkwardly greets her, clearly overwhelmed. She quickly admits Momo is super cute. Kazuto feels like a proud parent and boldly states that Momo is the cutest in the world. Kuro, initially stunned, eventually walks over to Momo and tries to act goofy, but Momo turns her head away in disinterest. Kazuto encourages Momo to be polite and greet Kuro properly, but Sayaka can't help laughing at Kuro's rejection. Sayaka then tells Kazuto that she's currently staying at the school and invites him to come along. She even assures him that the leader there is a trustworthy person. Kazuto is genuinely glad to hear there's a good leader, but he says he'll think about going. Sayaka clearly doesn't like that vague answer, but Kazuto explains that he still has things to do, namely, meeting with Natsu. Since they plan to form a party, it wouldn't be fair to make decisions without considering her feelings. Sayaka expresses concern for his safety, but Kazuto reminds her that both he and Momo have skills. Sayaka insists on joining him anyway, claiming she's strong, but Kazuto shuts her down bluntly. It's not about strength. He knows Natsu is extremely shy. She has trouble even being alone with him, so adding another person right now would be overwhelming for her. Sayaka pouts at the explanation, but tells Kazuto to at least visit the school once he's finished with his current plans. Kazuto agrees, and she leaves with Kuro. He waves them goodbye and prepares to go meet Natsu. However, unbeknownst to him, Natsu has been watching their entire exchange from a distance, and she is stunned to see another girl standing so closely beside Kazuto. Kazuto reaches the meeting place and receives a message from Natsu saying that she is at the entrance. When he doesn't see anyone there, another message arrives, asking him to be patient, as she's about to deactivate her skill. A strange glitch flickers in the space before him, and then, all of a sudden, Natsu appears, sitting right in front of him. She greets him shyly, and Kazuto returns it with equally awkward energy. He asks if that just now was a skill, and she explains that her profession is hikikomori. Because of that, she gained the cognitive inhibition skill. There are various limitations, but overall, it's a skill that makes one's presence extremely hard to detect. Kazuto is surprised by the explanation, but Natsu asks if there's something on her face. He's been staring too much. He quickly clarifies that he was actually about to ask more about her skill. Instead, he asks if she'd like to meet face-to-face from now on. Natsu hesitates but tells him that she's thought a lot about it. Being shy makes it hard for her to speak with someone for the first time. For the longest time, she believed she could never form a party with someone of the opposite gender. But then she told herself, if she could talk through mail, maybe she could meet in person too. Kazuto is a little baffled by her logic. Even Momo seems confused. Natsu suddenly thanks him for always being kind and supporting her. A system message pops up stating, Natsu is looking at Kazuto with great expectations. Kazuto corrects it mentally. She's not looking at him, but clearly looking forward to the future. Another system prompt asks, do you want to add Natsu as a friend? Kazuto hesitates for a moment, but then accepts and adds Natsu to his party. However, he's immediately shocked to see that she's level 20, 4 levels above him. Just as he opens his mouth to ask about her level, she seems about to ask him something too, likely about Sayaka, but before either can continue, Natsu hits her limit. Flustered and apologetic, she suddenly vomits, right on Kazuto. He freezes like a statue, unable to react, and just like that, his first real-life meeting with Natsu ends with a face full of puke. Kazuto sits motionless as Natsu bows deeply, profusely apologizing in front of him. He tries to get her to stop. After all, they're in a party now. There's no need to worry about trivial things. Thankfully, Aka has already cleaned up the mess. Natsu apologizes one last time, saying she has no idea what kind of face she should be making right now. Kazuto stares at her blankly, and she laughs nervously, saying that she always wanted to hear that kind of reaction from him. Kazuto barely resists the urge to ask if he can laugh. Having gotten the embarrassing part over with, Kazuto changes the topic and asks about their next course of action. Natsu, excited, proposes that they go hunting like elite monster hunters. Even Momo joins in, using her adorable puppy eyes to convince Kazuto. Still, Kazuto insists on confirming their skills and professions before diving into danger. Natsu looks a bit deflated just thinking about it and needs Momo to snuggle her back to motivation. Kazuto pouts a little himself. He wants some fluff too. Natsu explains that she has 2 professions, shut-in and sniper. Kazuto is surprised by her choices, but Natsu explains that she initially thought none of this was real. 4 days ago, her skills were only cognitive inhibition and gacha. Fortunately, she happened to draw a complete sniper set from the gacha. Still under the impression that everything was just a dream, she started hunting monsters using the sniper rifle. She gained a skill called bullet making and continued fighting for a long time before finally realizing this was all real. After that, she focused on leveling up and surviving, hoping that she could one day join an organized group, maybe even a mercenary unit, if such a thing existed. Kazuto acknowledges that it must have been incredibly difficult for her. Still, he asks if she can teach him more about her skills and professions. Natsu agrees instantly. She has complete trust in Kazuto and Momo. Kazuto's heart skips a beat at that, and he blushes as he thanks her. The mood is thick with awkward tension, but it doesn't last long. Kazuto's senses suddenly flare. A pack of shadow wolves is closing in on them. They first decide to relocate, knowing that their odorless and concealment skills should make them hard to track. But Kazuto has a hunch. These shadow wolves aren't chasing them randomly. He cryptically thinks they're being targeted on purpose. He lifts Natsu onto his back, and she lets out a startled yelp. It'll be faster this way. He uses shadow manipulation to secure her in place so she doesn't fall off. Her gear is considered personal player equipment, so he can't store it in the item box. Soon, Kazuto senses more shadow wolves approaching from the opposite side. With no better options in the area, they head to the nearby shopping mall. Kazuto confirms that they'll make their stand here, and Natsu pulls out her sniper rifle, putting on her battle face. She asks if Kazuto can get her to the roof. Her strengths lie in long-range combat. Kazuto agrees and hands her a beanie before she goes. He explains that it's a camouflage item that Aka found while they were separated. Natsu puts it on and climbs higher with the help of Kazuto's shadow skill. Once the shadow wolves completely surround them, Kazuto turns to his party. "It's time to hunt," he says. He and Momo use their shadows to slow the wolves while Kazuto rains down heavy vehicles from the item box. The method is effective, and Kazuto even levels up to 17. However, a few wolves slip through the chaos. Kazuto covers his ears and signals Momo, who lets out a loud, high-pitched howl. The sound paralyzes the wolves in their tracks. Momo learned this unique sound ability after consuming a magic stone. Natsu takes the opportunity to shoot 3 shadow wolves in quick succession, gaining a burst of exp. Her sniping is clean, precise, and unaffected by Momo's howl. She provides perfect cover fire for Kazuto. Kazuto is feeling confident they can easily take out the remaining wolves, but just then, his senses scream danger. He and Momo instinctively leap away. The ground where they stood moments ago cracks open, and from the darkness below, a monster begins to rise. A new monster emerges from the shadows, radiating an intimidating pressure. Kazuto immediately senses that this is a high-ranking shadow wolf known